Hi guys, in this episode we're going to be ditching our rig for a little while to talk about a little thing called the Steam Deck. Now I know what you're thinking, why would we ditch our rig for a Steam Deck? Ordinarily I would say you don't want to replace your sim rig with a Steam Deck, but there are times and places, like on an airplane, where you're not actually going to be able to take your sim rig with you, but you might still want to have that racing fix. So let's take a look at the deck and some of the games that you might be able to play on it. If you haven't heard of the Steam Deck, what rock have you been hiding under? It's a handheld games machine by the folks at Valve. Yes, the same people that brought you Counting to Half-Life 1 and 2, the Valve Index, and of course, Steam, the platform that most of us use as PC gamers. Now, I'm not going to bore you too much with the juicy Linux deets about the operating system or the hardware specs of this device. All you need to know is it's a device that can play a good majority of the games that you have in your Steam collection. First up, we're going to have a look at ACC, a game well known for being quite power hungry when it comes to your PC specs, especially when you're talking triples and VR. So how does the Steam Deck run this? Actually, pretty well. Once you've got your controls configured properly, which takes a bit of time, and you tinker around with the visuals, it runs fairly fluidly on this device. I wouldn't expect it to have the best of battery lives when running ACC, but it does make the game playable in over 30 frames a second. In fact, I would say in some instances this is slightly better than it is playing it on console. Of course, you've still got the fiddly console-like controls to deal with, but that's going to be a problem across all of these simulators. And I'm sure that's a me thing as much as it is Sims. I've never been much of an Automobilista 2 fan. However, this game does run very well on the Steam Deck. In fact, just loading up, no setup is necessary. You can go straight in, start playing the game, and it is as fluid can be. I have to applaud the developers here. They've done a great job on getting this game running on a vast variety of different hardware, and the fact that I can play this in VR and it looks fantastic and then go straight into the Steam Deck and it plays really well is just phenomenal. It doesn't end there though. The controls, as I was saying with ACC, it's a bit fiddly when it comes to, console-like controls. When it comes to Automobilista 2, it somehow does this very well, and I was able to, despite being quite digital in the way that I use those controls, have some degree of control over my vehicle, which I didn't really feel in ACC. Dirt Rally 2, it's a Codemasters game. You know that it is thinking of consoles as well as PCs when it comes to being released. So it was a little bit disappointing when first up on the Steam Deck it crashed quite a lot until it was patched, and then after that, whilst it's stable, it doesn't have the kind of console-like control that I got from AMS2. It's, disappointing, as I said. It's a good experience, however, whilst not great because of my lack of fidelity with the controls, but the frame rate is reasonably good and the visuals are stunning, even on this little device. What game is best played on a little gamepad? Yep, you've guessed it, retro games. And the game that I'm looking at here is Formula Retro Racer. The game was one of the first to be verified on the Steam Deck, and it's smooth as butter. The controls are also fantastic, as you'd expect, being more of an arcade game than a simulator, as we've looked at with the other games. Formula Retro Racer doesn't have a vast array of tracks, unfortunately, and those tracks are quite fictitious in nature. However, if you just want to have a little racing blast around a few circuits in your free time on an aeroplane, then something like this is probably going to just hit that nerve for you. Just because it's not a sim, don't let that ruin your enjoyment. Next up on our list, we have Kart Kraft. Now, I have a slight bee in my bonnet with this game because multiplayer still not out there properly yet. We've got a lot of practice sessions, and yes, the shadow multiplayer aspect is reasonable, but it's not the racing that I was expecting to have with my friends after the announcement quite some months ago. Now I've got that off my chest, let's look at how the game plays on the Steam Deck. Now, the fine print suggests that Kart Kraft is not verified for the Steam Deck, and that some of the controls need to use the touchscreen in order to behave properly. Now, when I went through Kart Kraft, I didn't experience any of this. So your mileage might vary on this. However, all of the menu controls and the controls in the actual simulator experience were all working flawlessly. The game is a little twitchy on the controls on the Steam Deck. However, it plays reasonably well. The frame rate's fluid, and I had a good experience on it. I wasn't as fast as I am with the rig, but I still managed to get some laps in, and some of them were even valid. So we've looked through what you can play, what can't you play. Assetto Corsa, iRacing, and R Factor 2 just don't work at all right now. Perhaps one day some of these will, but it's a shame that you can't experience these games yet on the Steam Deck, especially AC with the plethora of mods available to it. Proton is an ever-evolving technology, and hopefully that means that some of these games will be available sooner rather than later on the Steam Deck. However, being that it's Linux-based, it's unlikely that something like iRacing is going to be ported for that purpose. So we've established the Steam Deck is a great device and it can play a lot of our sims quite well. However, there are some limitations to this device. As I've said before, it's a small form factor and it uses essentially a joypad format for play. That isn't terrible, especially if you're used to playing on consoles. However, if it's in hands like mine, those controls end up somewhat digital, and the very best sims aren't really tuned for that. They tend to just end up firing you off the circuit, or you lock up your brakes. You can tune out some of that behavior with some helper options, and a lot of games do provide that. However, if you're looking for that sim experience, then you kind of want to have the ability to play without those things, and the Steam Deck makes it hard to do that. These days, it's hard enough trying to get a graphics card that is as cheap as the Steam Deck. Now, I'm not saying this is a cheap device and you should just go out and buy it because it's a no-brainer. However, when you think how much money you have to spend on your big rig, and if you do spend a lot of time away from home, this might be something that you want to pick up just so you can utilize your Steam library a little more. This device doesn't have the greatest of control formats for sim racing. However, for racing games in general, it's not bad. The fact that you can play any of the more popular sims at all on this tiny little device is incredible. The way that technology is going, looking good for the future. When you're away from home, you can use a Steam Deck to play against AI, you could use it to learn new tracks, or you could play something entirely different. I tend to do a little bit of all those things. I even fake a little bit of family time by sitting down on the sofa with the Steam Deck, sitting next to my other half while she's watching some TV. Now, I hope you've enjoyed exploring the Steam Deck, and if you have, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Leave some comments in the comment section below if you have something to talk about around this subject, and don't forget to support this channel by subscribing. Until next time, guys, goodbye for now.